Hi, everyone. My name is Wang, and I'm the Secretariat of the Fourth Global Corporate Sustainability Award in 2021. I have the honor to speak to you about Sustainability Reporting Award for 2021. Sustainability Reporting Award recognizes organizations for disclosure of sustainability information in transparent and credible manners. The eligible entries include English version sustainability reports for the calendar years from 2019 to 2021. The reporting frameworks include, but not limited to, GRI, integrated reporting, SASB, and other local regulations. Those are the award winners for 2020 in the category of world-class and emerging markets. That's a big picture of award criteria. 50% goes to multimedia application, which means the website for CSR, and 50% goes to the report. And we'll be going through the details of those criteria. First, let's start from the sustainability report section. We'll be going through the criteria based on two of the award winners last year, China Airlines, which follows GRI, and Societe Generale, which follows integrated reporting. So as you can see, there's no limit to reporting framework for those entries. First criteria is the materiality as part of the completeness of the report, which accounts for 15% out of 100 in the report. The report is being assessed on the materiality matrix, in this case for China Airlines, which includes material topics, level of impacts to company and stakeholders. Other assessments include disclosure of methodology and procedure in materiality analysis, the meaning of material topics to the organization, and their reference to material topics in other sections of the report. In this case of China Airlines, there's a clear materiality matrix which outlines the importance to China Airlines and influence on stakeholders. The material issues are also clearly listed on a table. In the case of Societe Generale, the integrated reporting, there is a section on comprehensive and integrated value creation. So it started off from some of the key performance criteria and strategies, all the way to their strategic plans and reference to SDGs. So that's for the integrated report. And the next criteria, which accounts for 10% of the report overall, is stakeholder inclusion. It means the assessment will be based on stakeholder identification and their meaning to the organization, stakeholder engagement strategies and communication channels, the issues focused by different stakeholders, and the response strategy towards different issues. So in the case of China Airlines, there's a table that lists out stakeholder engagement, which lists out the stakeholders, the issue of importance to those stakeholders, communication channels, communication frequency, and communication results, and etc. In the case of Societe Generale, there's a table which lists out the frameworks for appropriate dialogue on the stakeholder inclusion. It lists out all the stakeholders, the dialogue framework in place, and value add for the stakeholder. So that's from the aspect of integrated reporting of this French bank, Societe Generale. Strategy. The focus will be the importance and value of sustainability to the organization. For example, SDG-oriented value chain, principles, management approaches, and organization's response strategy towards ESG, which means listing out the short, medium, and long-term goals of the organization in achieving sustainability. It's also important to list out the quantitative and qualitative goals set by the organization annually. In the case of Associate General, there's a clear picture of how strategies derive from purpose, value, resource, core business, all the way to products and services and value add to clients. So that's a 10% on strategy. Organization context, which means overview of the organization in aspects including products and services, financial performance, geographical distribution, employee information, etc. The reports are being assessed for the level of comprehensiveness in disclosure. So that's an example from both China Airlines and Associate General on their global business operation and workforce diversity, and etc. Assurance. In big picture, the assurance are being assessed for internal audit and external assurance. External assurance, for example, AA1000, ISA 3000, with their scopes and methodology. Other forms of certifications are being considered, such as ISO and greenhouse gas emission certificates. The higher level of assurance may incur extra marks, but that's not major for this 10% of assurance. And that's the case for China Airlines and Associate General. Management process. The 10% will be assessed for the organization's management system, management approach for material issues, for the report, guidelines and standards applied, for example, GRI and integrated report, personnel and business units responsible. And that's the management process. For example, in the case of China Airlines, clearly listed out the reporting principles and standards, disclosed unit in charge and management mechanism. And in the case of Associate General, it listed out in an external document to the report of how it's following the International Integrated Reporting Council standard. 5% on governance. That means the integration of sustainability into corporate governance, and the assessment of risk, opportunities, and respective management process should be consistent with sustainability management. And that's a demonstration from China Airlines on its board of directors and how it influences the management, as well as corporate sustainability committee. This governance section is being assessed for disclosure of business units accountable, relevance between remuneration of board members and sustainability performance indicators, risk and opportunities assessment, and consistency between performance indicator and organization's sustainability principle. In the case of Associate General, there's also a section on identification of risks on macroeconomics and geographical political risks, and also climate change and their impacts to the organization. The part that outlines overall governance is the number of directors, whether they're independent, the gender, nationalities, and number of directors meetings. And that's how Associate General demonstrate its governance. Performance is being assessed for the impacts caused by material issues, ESG, and regulatory compliances. Assess the disclosure of ESG performance with qualitative and quantitative demonstration, and disclosure of incidents of non-compliance, penalties, or controversies, which means whether the news is good or bad, it's important to disclose them. especially when there's a case of penalty, non-compliance, or controversy. For example, in the case of China Airlines, there's a very clear section on material human rights issues in 2019, when there was a strike in February. It also outlined a true value study for the airline and on its ESG performance. In the case of Associate General, once again, we're back to this table showing the key part to the organization's sustainability on satisfying protection of customers, for example, with their performance, their target, and also reference to SDGs. 5% on stakeholder inclusion. That means results of consensus reached through stakeholder engagements, actions plans, and change in organization strategies. The report is being assessed for organizations' response to material topics focused by stakeholder, strategies and action plans in response to material issues. And in the case of China Airlines and corporate and Associate General, they've both outlined the stakeholder inclusion in a table, which we've gone through earlier. So in this section, they're being assessed for the response to material topics and also strategic actions taken. So 25% on communication and 10% is on presentation, which means the report needs to be appropriate in layout, logic, graphical illustration, and overall lens. The proportion between text, table, and diagram is being assessed, and it's good to have innovative visual design and presentation. Both China Airlines and Associate General had a pretty good outline of its strategy that is SDG oriented and also focus on their stakeholder. And that's how they presented their diagram. Stakeholder inclusion. The 5% is being graded on stakeholder engagement channels, mechanism, results, and response strategies. It's also important that reports must be available for download online. In the case of China Airlines, there's a feedback channel for employee issue that's being disclosed on the report. In the case of Associate General, it's through the LinkedIn profile of their Chief Executive Officer. 10% on structure. That means the overall conclusion, index, and hyperlinks to web page or other details. It's also being assessed for outline of annual highlights, key data, material issues, and conclusions. In the case of China Airlines, there's a highlight of all the performance on environment issue and other sustainability issues in every section, which is being referenced to GRI standards. In the case of Associate General, it's being referenced to the website for the material issues. So the next 50% goes to multimedia applications, which means the corporate website with CSR sections. The first 25% is being assessed for CSR website update and management, which means the website needs to be updated regularly with the latest news and real-time communications. The CSR section needs to be hyperlinked to homepage with search engine or map. The design and flow of information is important. And this is a demonstration from China Airlines CSR website. The next 25% is being assessed for electronic reports and hyperlinks to related information, which means the website is being assessed for having updated reports available for download, hyperlinks to critical information, and the disclosure of key dimensions of sustainability, including governance, environment, social, and supply chain. And that's a demonstration from Associate General with the key information on CSR, including the updated integrated report. The next 25% is a multimedia design interactive function, which means effective communication with stakeholders. This section is being assessed for quality of charts, images, text, and videos, and also for creativity in visual designs, languages, and online features. In the case of China Airlines, there's an online feature that demonstrates carbon emission for flights from one destination to another for the different classes you're traveling on. And also there's an interactive game asking questions related to sustainability strategies of the airline. In the case of Social General, there's an updated video on sustainable city. So now this is a change for this year on stakeholder communications and feedback. There's a difference between external stakeholder and internal stakeholder. 15% goes to external stakeholder, which means being assessed for feedback channels, engagements through social media, electronic newsletter, and website in communicating with external stakeholders, for example, customers. In the case of China Airlines, there is a survey on material sustainability topics. And in the case of Social General, the communication is predominantly through LinkedIn. And that's another new section for this year. Stakeholder communication and feedback channel with internal stakeholder. Be aware that this section is not necessarily assessed for the website itself. This section assesses communication about ESG strategies with stakeholders through channels, for example, corporate inbox, whistleblowing mechanisms, corporate event, integration of ESG into corporate KPIs. Those are some of the examples. The channels being evaluated include corporate website, the internal KPI, corporate event reports, or letter from management. This section can be demonstrated not only through the website itself, it can also be demonstrated through some of the internal documents, such as KPI or a letter from management. In the case of China Airlines, however, there's a section on the website where for employee relations contact. So that's an example of internal stakeholder communication. Those are some of the frequently asked questions. How many winners are there per year? The answer is really depending on the number of participants and the overall performance of those participants. Does the overall ESG performance matter? For example, the question is, if I don't meet the carbon emission target reduction every year, does that matter to the overall result? The answer is no. This award is solely on disclosure of ESG information. Do I have to be there at the ceremony? That's a common question during the COVID-19 pandemic. The answer is not necessary. The trophy will be posted to the winners who cannot be there at the ceremony. How is the award being graded? We have a dedicated judging panel that has specialty in sustainability report. So that's the award timeline. So the deadline is end of August. The winners will be notified on 22nd of October, and the ceremony will be held on 17th of November. So all the best. We hope to see you entering this award and winning the award this year.